as I mentioned earlier, in 2016, I built the first one for AI researchers, and we delivered the first one to OpenAI. And Elon was there to receive it. And this version, I built a mini version. And the reason for that is because AI has now gone from AI researchers to every engineer, every student, every AI scientist. And AI is going to be everywhere. And so instead of these $250,000 versions, we're going to make these $3,000 versions, and schools can have them, students can have them, and you just set it next to your PC or a Mac, and all of a sudden you have your own AI supercomputer, and you develop and build AIs, build your own AI, build your own R2-D2.
Because you would place those bets, what did the middle of that decade feel like for you?
Well, that's a good question. It probably felt like today. To me, there's always some problem, and then there's some reason to be impatient. There's always some reason to be happy about where you are, and there's always many reasons to carry on. And so I think, as I was reflecting a second ago, that sounds like this morning.
Yeah.
But I would say that in all things that we pursue, first you have to have core beliefs. You have to reason from your best principles, and ideally you're reasoning from principles of either physics or deep understanding of the industry, or deep understanding of the science. Wherever you're reasoning from, you reason from first principles, and at some point you have to believe something. And if those principles don't change and the assumptions don't change, then there's no reason to change your core beliefs. And then along the way, there's always some evidence of success, and that you're leading in the right direction. And sometimes you go a long time without evidence of success, and you might have to course correct a little. But the evidence comes, and if you feel like you're going in the right direction, we just keep on going. The question of why did we stay so committed for so long, the answer is actually the opposite. There was no reason to not be committed, because we believed it. And I've believed in NVIDIA for 30 plus years, and I'm still here working every single day. And there's no fundamental reason for me to change my belief system. And I fundamentally believe that the work we're doing in revolutionizing computing is as true today, even more true today than it was before. And so we'll stick with it, until otherwise. There's, of course, very difficult times along the way. When you're investing in something and nobody else believes in it, and costs a lot of money, and maybe investors or others would rather you just keep the profit, or whatever it is, improve the share price, or whatever it is. But you have to believe in your future. You have to invest in yourself. And we believed it so deeply that we invested tens of billions of dollars before it really happened. And it was 10 long years, but it was fun along the way.
What do you feel like is important for this audience to know that I haven't asked?
One of the most important things I would advise is, for example, if I were a student today, the first thing I would do is to learn AI. How do I learn to interact with ChatGPT? How do I learn to interact with Gemini Pro? And how do I learn to interact with Grok? And these learning how to interact with AI is not unlike being someone who is really good at asking questions. You're incredibly good at asking questions, and prompting AI is very, very similar. You can't just randomly ask a bunch of questions, and so asking AI to be an assistant to you requires some expertise and artistry in how to prompt it. And so if I were a student today, irrespective of whether it's for math or for science or chemistry or biology, or it doesn't matter what field of science I'm going to go into or what profession I am, I'm going to ask myself, how can I use AI to do my job better? If I want to be a lawyer, how can I use AI to be a better lawyer? If I want to be a better doctor, how can I use AI to be a better doctor? If I want to be a chemist, how do I use AI to be a better chemist? If I want to be a biologist, how do I use AI to be a better biologist? That question should be persistent across everybody. And just as my generation grew up as the first generation that has to ask ourselves, how can we use computers to do our jobs better?
Yeah.
The generation before us had no computers. My generation was the first generation that had to ask the question, how do I use computers to do my job better? Remember, I came into the industry before Windows 95. Right? 1984, there were no computers in offices. And after that, shortly after that, computers started to emerge. And so we had to ask ourselves, how do we use computers to do our jobs better? The next generation doesn't have to ask that question, but it has to ask the obviously next question, how can I use AI to do my job better? That is start and finish, I think, for everybody.
It's a really exciting and scary and therefore worthwhile question, I think, for everyone.
I think it's going to be incredibly fun. AI is obviously a word that people are just learning now, but it's just, it's made your computer so much more accessible. It is easier to prompt ChatGPT to ask it anything you like than to go do the research yourself. And so we've lowered the barrier of understanding. We've lowered the barrier of knowledge. We've lowered the barrier of intelligence. And everybody really ought to just go try it. The thing that's really, really crazy is if I put a computer in front of somebody and they've never used a computer, there is no chance they're going to learn that computer in a day. There's just no chance. Somebody really has to show it to you. And yet with ChatGPT, if you don't know how to use it, all you have to do is type in, I don't know how to use ChatGPT, tell me. And it would come back and give you some examples. And so that's the amazing thing. The amazing thing about intelligence is it'll help you along the way and make you superhuman, along the way.
How do we get from the robots that we have now to the future world that you see of robotics?
Yeah. Let me use language models, maybe ChatGPT, as a reference for understanding Omniverse and Cosmos. And so first of all, when ChatGPT first came out, it was extraordinary, and it has the ability to do to basically from your prompt generate text. However, as amazing as it was, it has the tendency to hallucinate if it goes on too long, or if it pontificates about a topic it is not informed about. It'll still do a good job generating plausible answers. It just wasn't grounded into truth, and so people called it hallucination. And so the next generation, shortly, it had the ability to be conditioned by context. So you could upload your PDF, and now it's grounded by the PDF. The PDF becomes the ground truth. It could actually look up search, and then the search becomes its ground truth. And between that, it could reason about how to produce the answer that you're asking for. And so the first part is a generative AI, and the second part is ground truth. Okay, and so now let's come into the physical world, the world model. We need a foundation model, just like we need ChatGPT had a core foundation model. That was the breakthrough. In order for robotics to be smart about the physical world, it has to understand things like gravity, friction, inertia, geometric and spatial awareness. It has to understand that an object is sitting there even when I looked away. When I come back, it's still sitting there, object permanence. It has to understand cause and effect. If I tip it, it'll fall over. And so these kind of physical common sense, if you will, has to be captured or encoded into a world foundation model so that the AI has world common sense. Okay? And so somebody has to go create that, and that's what we did with Cosmos. We created a world language model. Just like ChatGPT was a language model, this is a world model. The second thing we have to go do is we have to do the same thing that we did with PDFs and context and grounding it with ground truth. And so the way we augment Cosmos with ground truth is with physical simulations, because Omniverse uses physics simulation, which is based on principled solvers. The mathematics is Newtonian physics, is the Right. It's the math we know. Okay. All of the fundamental laws of physics we've understood for a very long time, and it's captured into Omniverse. That's why Omniverse is a simulator. And using the simulator to ground or to condition Cosmos, we can now generate an infinite number of stories of the future, and they're grounded on physical truth. Just like between PDF or search plus ChatGPT, we can generate an infinite amount of interesting things, answer a whole bunch of interesting questions. The combination of Omniverse plus Cosmos, you could do that for the physical world.